Part 1. The hidden war inside your mind. What if I told you that the feeling of never being good enough is not a flaw in your character, but an echo from your childhood, a distortion of truth embedded deep within your unconscious mind? Would you dare to look behind the curtain? Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror that reflects not your face, but your worth. Every time you look into it, the image shifts based on how others treated you, how society judged you, how your parents spoke to you, or how you failed that one exam as a child. From the very beginning, you were measured, compared, evaluated. And slowly, without realizing it, you started to internalize the idea that you must earn your worth, that you must prove your value. And in that moment, the seed of never enough was planted. We begin this journey not with blame, but with awareness. Because the truth is, we all carry invisible scripts written by people who were themselves wounded. A mother who withheld affection, a father who only praised achievement, a teacher who humiliated you, perhaps without even knowing. These were not just events, they were psychological implants. And the tragedy is that these voices became your own. You started to say to yourself what others once said to you. Are you willing to ask yourself, whose voice is that in my head? And is it even mine? We live in a culture that glorifies perfection, speed, and constant improvement. The self-help industry, ironically, is often fuel for your insecurity. Be your best self, it screams. But hidden in that message is a poisonous whisper. Who you are right now is not enough. So you chase, you hustle. You compare yourself to filtered lives on social media, to curated successes, to illusions. Yet, the more you try to be enough, the more the goalpost moves. And at night, when the noise dies down, you hear that voice again. You failed. You're behind. You should be more by now. But we must ask, more of what and to whom? The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are. This is the core of the illness." You have been running so hard toward the person you think you should be that you've forgotten the person you already are. You compare your inner chaos to someone else's outer calm and conclude that you are broken. But maybe, just maybe, you're not broken. Maybe you're simply lost in a system that profits from your self-doubt. What would happen if you stopped running? Who would you become if you weren't trying to become someone else? Let's go deeper. The sense of not enough often begins in childhood when love was conditional. If you were good, you were praised. If you were bad, you were punished or ignored. Over time, you learned a dangerous equation. Love equals performance. So now, as an adult, you seek validation through achievement, people-pleasing, perfectionism. And even when you succeed, the feeling doesn't stick. Why? Because external validation can never fill an internal wound. You are drinking salt water and wondering why you're still thirsty. Think about this. What if the very thing you are chasing, approval, success, love, is already within you, but buried beneath shame? Shame is the invisible prison. It tells you, you are not worthy. You are not lovable. You are not enough. But shame is a lie. Not in a feel-good Instagram quote way, but in a deep, existential way. Shame is a distortion of reality. The philosopher Elaine de Botton said, "We're all a little fragile." The problem is we often assume others aren't. Everyone you admire has felt like a fraud. Everyone you envy has doubted their worth. The difference is that they didn't believe the lie forever.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Now here's a question that may shake you. What have you sacrificed in your life just to feel enough for one moment? A relationship? Your health? Your peace? Most of us trade long-term fulfillment for short-term approval. We say yes when we want to say no. We overextend to avoid rejection. We pretend to be confident while dying inside. This is the tragedy of the human condition. We betray ourselves just to protect the illusion of being accepted. But here's the twist. The more you abandon yourself to be loved, the more unloved you feel. Because deep down you know it's not the real you being loved, but the mask. This creates a psychological split, the outer self and the inner truth. You become a stranger to yourself. And in that estrangement, the never good enough narrative thrives. So let me ask you, what would it take for you to take off the mask, even if it means some people won't applaud anymore? You see, the pursuit of perfection is not noble, it's a trauma response. It's the child inside you trying to finally feel safe, finally feel seen. But perfection is a moving target. No matter how close you get, it always shifts. So you work harder, trying to outrun the voice in your head. But you cannot heal by achieving more. You can only heal by feeling more, feeling the pain, sitting with the discomfort, listening to the wound, not silencing it. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is the key. You are not doomed to feel this way forever, but you must turn inward. You must become the observer of your thoughts, not their prisoner. The next time you hear that voice say, "You're not good enough," pause. Ask, who was speaking? Where did you learn that? Trace it back, like a detective. Deconstruct it, and then challenge it. Because the truth is, you are not failing. You are awakening. This awakening, however, is not comfortable. It often begins with a collapse. The moment you realize that no achievement, no external praise, no relationship will fix the emptiness inside, that is the beginning of real transformation. You stop chasing and start listening. You stop performing and start being. And in that stillness, something miraculous happens. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Let me leave you with a question. If you stopped believing you weren't good enough, what new reality would become possible for you? Not in theory, but in practice. How would your relationships change? How would your work evolve? How would you treat yourself? Because the truth is, self-worth is not something you earn. It's something you reclaim. And yet, this is only the beginning. We've explored the roots of the never enough wound, but we have yet to uncover the deeper psychological mechanisms that keep it alive. The inner critic, the comparison trap, the subconscious sabotage. In the next episode of this journey, we'll dive into the hidden architecture of your mind and expose the enemies hiding in your psyche. Part 2, the invisible enemy living in your mind. You wake up, and the first voice you hear isn't your own, it's the critic. It doesn't scream. It whispers. You're already behind. You should have done more yesterday. Look at you, wasting time again. And before your feet even touch the floor, shame has already started its daily ritual. But here's the truth. That voice isn't you. It's a program, an algorithm of past pain, old beliefs, and societal conditioning. The tragedy is that most of us mistake it for our own thoughts. Let's speak plainly. There is an invisible enemy living in your mind, not a monster, not a demon, but a structure, a psychological architecture built over years of subtle wounds and quiet betrayals. It's called the inner critic, and it is relentless. It doesn't care how much you've achieved. It doesn't care how others see you. Its only goal is survival. And it survives by keeping you small, doubtful, afraid. Why? Because if you one day truly believed you were enough, it would die. This is where self-sabotage becomes the silent killer. You may wonder why you procrastinate on dreams that matter to you, why you push away people who care, why you never feel satisfied, even when you get what you wanted. It's not because you're weak. It's because a part of you doesn't believe you deserve peace. That part believes your worth must be earned through struggle. So it creates chase. It delays healing. It sabotages love, all to protect an identity rooted in unworthiness. We must ask ourselves, who am I without the struggle? Who am I if I stop proving myself? These aren't easy questions, because when your identity is built on not being enough, healing feels like death. If you've always been the overachiever, the pleaser, the fixer, then letting go of those roles can feel like you're disappearing. But here's the paradox. To become your true self, your false self must fall apart. The masks must crack. The ego must surrender. This is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Man is something that shall be overcome." He was not speaking about others. He was pointing toward the self we've become to survive the conditioned self. The self that's addicted to validation, terrified of rejection, and constantly scanning the world for signs that we're not safe. And the most dangerous part, this self is invisible to us. It hides behind our habits, our sarcasm, our perfectionism. It hides behind our busyness. So we must slow down, not to be lazy, but to see clearly. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone, your to-do list, or your distractions? Most people can't tolerate stillness, not because they're restless, but because silence exposes the truth. And the truth is, beneath all the noise, many of us feel like imposters. We smile while suffering. We achieve while crumbling. We love while feeling unlovable. And no one sees it. Because we've become masters of hiding our pain in plain sight. This is why healing is not about adding more. It's about subtracting, unlearning, undoing. You don't become enough, you remember that you always were. The philosopher Epictetus taught, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments about them. The same is true of ourselves. It's not your flaws that cause suffering. It's your belief that you shouldn't have them. It's your belief that flaws equal failure. But what if imperfection is not the enemy of worthiness, but the proof of your humanity? The comparison trap is another poison we must dismantle. You scroll through social media and see curated lives, perfect bodies, perfect relationships, perfect success stories, and you feel behind. But here's the truth. You are comparing your messy reality to someone else's highlight reel. You are measuring your insides against their outsides. And in doing so, you forget that everyone is performing, everyone is editing, everyone is afraid of being exposed. So the next time you compare, ask yourself, am I comparing realities or illusions? Comparison feeds the inner critic like gasoline feeds fire. It confirms the lie that you're not enough. But here's the twist. The person you envy is probably envying someone else. The person you think has it all together might cry themselves to sleep. We are all fighting battles no one sees. And the moment we realize that, we begin to reclaim our compassion not just for others, but for ourselves. Because the cure for comparison is not competition, it's connection. Authentic, vulnerable, human connection. Let's talk about identity. Most of us build our identity around role: student, partner, achiever, leader. But what happens when those roles fade? When the job ends, when the relationship ends, when the praise stops? Many fall into existential crisis because their worth was tied to a role, not their essence. But you are not your job. You are not your productivity. You are not your followers, your resume, or your reputation. You are something deeper, older, unshakable. The essence that was present before you learned to perform. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And to be brave in today's world means to be authentic, to stop faking, to stop hustling for your worth, to look someone in the eye and say, "This is who I am, flawed, imperfect, but whole." That kind of bravery terrifies the inner critic because it thrives on your silence. And when you speak your truth, you take back your power. So I ask you, what truth are you afraid to speak, even to yourself? Let us now explore how the unconscious mind keeps the wound alive. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is wired for survival, not happiness. It remembers pain more vividly than joy. It scans for threats, even when there are none. And if you grew up in a home where love was inconsistent or conditional, your brain learned that safety equals performance, that love equals perfection. So even today, as an adult, your nervous system may still be reacting to ghosts. You're not lazy, you're exhausted from fighting shadows. This is why inner work is not just psychological, it's biological. Healing is not just about positive thinking. It's about rewiring your nervous system. It's about teaching your body that it's safe to rest, safe to feel, safe to be seen. This is the deep work, and it takes time. But every time you pause before self-criticism, every time you speak to yourself with kindness, every time you sit with pain instead of numbing it, you are changing your brain. You are becoming free. Let me offer you a practice. The next time you feel not good enough, pause, close your eyes, breathe, and then ask yourself, whose voice is this? Where did I first hear it? Is it true? Then respond with a different voice. One that says, I see you, I hear you, and you are enough, even now. This is not spiritual fluff. This is neural rewiring. This is inner reparenting. This is how you break the cycle. The root of never good enough is not low self-esteem. It's disconnection from the self, from the body, from truth. Healing is not becoming better, it's becoming whole. And to be whole is to embrace every part of you, the confident and the insecure, the joyful and the grieving, the light and the shadow. Carl Jung said, I'd rather be whole than good, because to be good often means to be obedient, to be approved of. But to be whole means to be real, and real is what we need in this world. Real people, real love, real healing. You don't need another mask. You need a mirror. One that reflects not your flaws, but your fullness. One that reminds you, you were never broken, only buried. And now it's time to rise. But the journey isn't over. We've uncovered the architecture of the inner critic, the biology of self-sabotage, and the illusions of comparison. In the final part, we will explore the path forward. How do we build a life rooted in self-worth, not self-doubt? How do we move from surviving to thriving, from performing to belonging? Part 3, becoming whole in a world that profits from your insecurity. There comes a point in the journey where you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, who taught me there was something wrong with me in the first place? This shift is not just psychological, it is spiritual. It is where healing begins. Because the real tragedy is not your flaws or failures, but the fact that you've been conditioned to believe you are only worthy when you hide them. We live in a society that thrives on your self-doubt. The beauty industry profits when you feel ugly. The hustle culture thrives when you feel like you're behind. The self-improvement industry grows when you believe you're broken. But let's be clear. You are not a project to be fixed. You are a person to be met, to be remembered, to be loved. And that love must start from within. Many people ask, how do I finally feel good enough? But this is the wrong question. Because enough is not a destination, it's a decision. A moment-by-moment choice to return to yourself, especially when the world tries to pull you away. You don't wait until you feel confident. You act as if you are worthy, even when the inner critic screams. You walk into the room not because you have no fear, but because you know fear. Let's talk about reparenting, one of the most powerful tools in psychology. Many of us were raised by emotionally unavailable, critical, or inconsistent caregivers, not because they were evil, but because they were wounded too. And so we inherited their beliefs, their fears, their shame. Reparenting means becoming the parent you always needed. Speaking to yourself the way you wish an adult had spoken to you. When you fail, instead of saying, "You idiot," you say, "That was hard. I'm proud of you for trying." This is how you heal the child still living inside your adult body. Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." But most people find it easier to give love than to receive it. Because receiving requires vulnerability. It requires believing that we are worthy, not for what we do, but simply for existing. And that terrifies the ego. Because the ego is built on doing, achieving, proving. But the soul already knows. It doesn't strive. It remembers. Ask yourself this. What if your worth was not dependent on your past or your potential? What if your worth was constant, unshakable, and eternal? How would you live then? How would you speak to yourself? How would you show up in relationships? Because when you embody your worth, everything changes. You stop chasing people who don't see you. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop betraying yourself just to be accepted. This is the essence of boundaries. People think boundaries are about keeping others out, but really they're about keeping yourself in. They are how you communicate to the world. I am worthy. I am whole. I will not abandon myself again. And yes, some people will be uncomfortable when you grow. Some will call you selfish. But remember, those who benefit from your self-abandonment will always see your self-respect as a threat. Let them be uncomfortable. You are not here to make everyone else feel okay. You are here to become free. Here's a deep question for you. What parts of yourself have you silenced in order to be liked? Maybe your anger, your sadness, your desires, your truth. We've been taught that certain emotions are bad, that being too much is dangerous. But your emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers. They are data. They are signals from the soul. And ignoring them doesn't make you strong, it makes you numb. Real strength is feeling it all and staying kind. Let's now speak about integration. Integration is what happens when you no longer exile any part of yourself. You don't hide your fear, you hold it. You don't suppress your shame, you listen to it. You don't reject your flaws, you embrace them as part of your humanity. This is what it means to become whole, not perfect, not healed in some final Instagram-worthy way, but real, present, awake. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. So much of our suffering comes from trying to control what others think, feel, or do. But liberation comes when you let go of that need. When you realize you don't need to be understood by everyone. You just need to be true to yourself. Let me offer you a vision. Imagine waking up one day and not feeling the need to prove anything. Not rushing, not performing, just existing fully. You walk through the world with presence, not urgency. You speak your truth without apology. You rest without guilt. You love without fear. This is not a fantasy. This is the result of inner work, day by day, choice by choice. But the work is not linear. Some days you'll feel powerful. Other days you'll fall back into the old wounds. That's okay. Growth is not about never falling, it's about rising differently, with more compassion, more awareness, more truth. Every relapse is an invitation. Every trigger is a teacher. Every moment of doubt is a doorway where you walk through it. Now let's talk about community. Healing alone is hard because the wound of not enough is relational. It was created in relationship and must be healed in relationship. Find people who see you, not just your performance. People who celebrate your joy, not your suffering. People who reflect your light back to you when you forget. These are your mirrors. And if you don't have them yet, become one for someone else. Because the more you love others as they are, the more you learn to love yourself the same. So what's the final step? There is no final step. That's the secret. There is no arrival, no mountaintop where insecurity vanishes forever. But there is a path, a way of being, a sacred rhythm of showing up again and again with love. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be present, to be alive, to be you. Let me leave you with one last question. If you knew beyond a doubt that you were already whole, what would you stop doing? And what would you finally begin? Because the psychology of never being good enough is not just a personal issue. It is a collective illusion, one we must dismantle together. So start now. Look in the mirror not for flaws, but for truth, for presence, for the soul that has survived so much and is still here, still breathing, still worthy. You are enough. You always were. And now it's time to live like it.